Hello everyone and welcome to the Pancake Parlay episode 24. I'm your host, The Don, and I'm here with Shouters.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Pretty good. This episode, we're pretty much just going to be fully talking about Season 2 of Westworld, specifically, I guess, the first 4 episodes that are out currently at the moment. And, I think a few months back when we were recording a podcast, obviously of this, you were saying you pretty much just caught up on Westworld a few months ago, and you're kind of fresh from the experience.
Yeah. I mean, it's early days in us making this podcast, but yeah, I'm pretty fresh because I didn't watch Westworld when it came out. Did it come out 2015?
Oh yeah. Oh man,
Correct.
that makes me feel really old. Yeah, it did come out in 2015.
Yeah,
Jesus.
well, yeah. Whereas for me, it's just oh, cool. Second season of a show I just watched is coming out, right? But obviously, it's a HBO show. It's got high production value, high quality acting. So it's not too surprising it's taken 3 years. How do you know how long the first season took? It took a while, right?
Oh yeah, I think from what I know, because I think I've been looking at it for a while, because it's Jonathan Nolan, so obviously Christopher Nolan's brother. I knew about this for a very long time, and I think he wanted to get this project off the ground for a long time. And they filmed Westworld back in 2012 or something like that, the first season.
Right.
And
Okay.
I don't know what happened, but it was delayed a whole other year for it to actually come out, as in the first season. So it was a long time, and it was I think the highest thing that HBO has kind of done on a new property at that point in time. So they're just okay, is it a gamble? Is it not a gamble? And I guess the first season kind of took everything kind of by storm in a sense, where everyone's just doing their little fan theories, and that's pretty much kind of the process of the show. I feel Nolan, both Nolans, for some reason they just really like doing mystery stuff. I don't know if you've watched something like Insomnia or what's the one with Guy Ritchie? No, Guy Ritchie, the other one. That dude, Memento and things like that. It's always
Memento.
There's always a mystery, They always like doing those, the Nolans. So.
Well, hey, look, mysteries are pretty interesting because, it does have the audience kind of get themselves involved. And I think especially with season 1, because obviously, we talked about it on, one of the older podcasts, which feel free to listen to it. I think it's a pretty good podcast.
It's probably episode 6 or something, very early.
Yeah, something like that. But, I wasn't a part of the, I guess, craze of investigating and figuring out what does each and every episode mean, right? And it was interesting for me just to kind of take bits and pieces here. And this is obviously going to be a spoiler podcast, so if you haven't watched Westworld, watch it. It's pretty good.
Pretty much HBO has to be hey, Game of Thrones is ending next year. We need something that's pretty much big.
Pretty much it. Yeah.
And obviously they're going to do a Game of Thrones spin-off, but that's probably 2020, 2021 or something, probably. So
yeah, well, it's isn't it supposed to be a prequel or something like that?
I don't know, man. It's still early days. But yeah, they probably want Westworld to be the next big thing, which is it's currently kind of getting building up to an audience. I'm assuming some people just don't I guess cowboys and stuff, but it's a lot more than that,
Well, this is the thing. When you have a huge gap between seasons, you probably do. It probably does result in some people not watching it, because there's the hype. But I think Westworld's been popular. I'm not too sure what the views are, but as I was mentioning before, I wasn't a part of the whole investigating the mystery, but I picked out a few parts I remember watching season 1 recently, and I was just oh, that's really odd because it doesn't seem to be internally consistent. And it eventually led to them revealing that, oh, they are actually flipping back between 2 different time points, right? With the Man in Black and William, which I kind of really liked the reveal of that, but I kind of also like the fact that I also figured that out on my own. So the show doesn't treat you it doesn't handhold you like a CSI or a Law and Order.
They don't really explain they don't have a scene where it's and now we're going to explain this. I think even the first episode of this season, I saw everyone's reviewing the first episode of this season. Everyone's I'm confused. It's very confusing. I'm like, all you have to know is there's different timelines, and it's the way I guess you construct the timelines into it. Like, even on occasion, I find it kind of confusing, but I know there's different timelines. It's just up to my brain to figure that out, I guess.
Well, I mean, it is confusing with this season because, yeah, obviously, like this time around, they're like, okay, we've already revealed our hand. Now you just have to figure out which timeline, you're dealing with this season, right? And I think I've kind of, we were talking about it a little bit before the podcast. I think the best way to kind of describe it is there's kind of three sections that we're kind of following, and at least, and Bernard is kind of the kind of the tether that connects these three regions that we're going through. And they're supposed to be what is kind of pre-Ford's plan, so, the robot rebellion, whatever you want to call it.
The day Skynet turned on live, and then
yeah. There's the events that we see at the beginning of season 2 with Bernard washing up on the beach, and I'd like to call that like post beach, like post Bernard washing up on the beach, and then everything in between, and kind of what we're seeing, with some of the episodes with Bernard, like he's kind of trying to figure out, like, he's seeing like old memories of himself being in the location, and this kind of area of the mystery falls in between these two particular important time points. So basically after Ford's plan, but before Bernard washes up on the beach, right? And I think that's the reason why it's a little bit, difficult to, and I guess people are having trouble figuring out, what's going on, and they're jumping all over the place, right? And is this happening now? Like, I can definitely understand the confusion, but I think that is part of the fun of watching this show, just to try and see, okay, like, when is this happening? I think there's 3, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are like more time points that they're jumping to, and this isn't really including like, they're also going back a little bit more about William, the Man in Black, and his kind of hand in the company and stuff. I kind of really
even like I think it was like episode 2 where they flashed back from like before Westworld even started, and it was kind of like a party dinner, and it was like forgot the main guy. It's the James Delos guy, and it's just like, hey, you should invest in our company. And he's like, why should you invest? And like, we have these autonomous robots that basically act like humans. And like, even when I was watching that scene, I'm like, is this a flash forward somehow, and the robots are somehow like in person, but obviously not. But like, I think maybe there is a scene in that, because like it's just random off the cuff, but like there's a bit where there's Bernard and there's like a shack, I think. And And I think, and like, obviously Dolores is there, so I'm thinking that's somewhere in the future, but once again, that's just a random off-cuff remark, because I don't remember as much, but I remember...
Well, no. Well, no, I remember, that particular scene is in the past, because they mention, because Dolores is talking to Bernard, and then Ford is in the background, and it's a younger version of Ford. So, unless there's a big reveal that Ford is alive and he's come back as a younger version of himself, which is something I actually said, I think, in the older podcast, like, if they were going to bring back his character, that's the way they would do it without, spending millions of dollars, right?
Yeah. So you actually think they're going to, like, bring the character back at least?
Well, they're hinting, if I'm saying for that particular scene, like, if it's in the future, then that would mean that Ford is alive again as a robot. But because they show a younger version of him, it is more than likely supposed to be an example of, Dolores remembering the past and them taking her out as a live model to show, hey, this is what the hosts can do, and, you should invest in Westworld and all that kind of stuff, right? Because I guess Ford and Bernard are the creators of Westworld, and then all those people who were talking to, James and them, and to get them to invest, like the Devos family to invest, that's basically, the Westworld company itself. But they're just the creators. Maybe it's like going to be them showing it off to Devos or whatever. It's like before that big premiere. But yeah, and so Dolores remembers that event that we kind of see like in episode 2 or 3. So I think that's an event in the past. However, given how the show is, I wouldn't be surprised if it turns out that, okay, Dolores is misremembering whether she's in the future and the past, and we're actually seeing an interaction between Bernard, Ford, and her in the future. But
Yeah.
again, I think that's definitely way out there. I hadn't even considered that, but it could be the case.
Well, like being able to, because that's the thing. It's like you can fake your own memories technically. Like that's the whole part with the whole Bernard thing, especially with like episode 4 when Bernard is, I think, finally confronted from the CEO who like might have died last season. I forgot her exact name, but you saw her, yeah, and then she got like strangled out in like episode 6. I think her name's was it Emily? No, it was the other one, I think. But yeah, it's like you finally figure out that it's like obviously like stuff like that can be, it's a backstory, you know, all these things are implanted, and actually like even just at like one of those things where it's like I think it was like episode 1 or it was in episode 2 where it was the main one of the, I guess, creator guys injected his kind of Lee injected his own persona onto Hector, being like, oh yeah, I'm in love with this girl type of thing. And I like how Maeve kind of was kind of like, yeah, you know, you wanted to be that cocky guy, so you put it into this guy, Hector. So I like that kind of little like memory stuff because, you know, it builds character. You know, these people are based off something.
Well, that's the thing. Like I guess the hosts have their storylines, or I forget what they call them exactly.
Is it backstory or like
backstory or something like this. And the thing is, like, yeah, I think with that guy, he definitely does put in elements because he's kind of the architect of like all the like storylines to get them all working together and stuff like that. He's kind of like the storyboarder for a story, right? So it's not too surprising that, yeah, he implants aspects of himself. But I think the bigger thing in this season is they're kind of touching on the concept of, you know, first with the Devos, so they convince the Dev, I forget, what's the main head's name? Something Devos, right? Not James, because that's the younger one.
It's the other dude, because I forgot his exact name. He's
but
it's not the guy that will, like, the guy who's gonna marry into the family. It's not that guy.
Oh no, actually he is James. Yeah, so James. Yeah. So so the thing with James, he kind of gets convinced to invest in the company, and then we kind of see in episode 4, like part of the reason is, you know, William convinces him in the early episodes, oh, you should do it because, you know, we're going to be collecting information on all these, you know, people coming to the park. And, you know, the only people who would be able to come to Westworld would probably be like, you know, the rich and, you know,
powerful, that like you can easily like blackmail, I guess, and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, that's because I think he was like a media mogul, right? The James character. And so that was his first interest, but he's also dying. So the second interest is, well, obviously he wants to see if he can transplant his consciousness into a host, right? And we're seeing a lot of that happen. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if we end up seeing like that being the crux of this particular season, because, you know, Bernard is an example of Ford being able to basically copy his old partner into a host to try and help him, you know, I guess work with his plans of Westworld and what he had planned. But obviously that doesn't plan out. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, you know, maybe Ford did figure out a way to transplant his consciousness, and that's the reason why maybe we'll see him later in the season. It'll be that big reveal. It's like, oh, he's actually alive, but he's in a younger version of himself. And you know, and that's kind of another mystery as well. You know, they talked about a super weapon or a weapon that, you know, the Man in Black was going to use when he was younger, but then an older version of him is like, no, we have to destroy it before.
And then obviously, like, how does he know about the super weapon? And it's kind of like if you just want to take conventional, I guess, storytelling, it's like obviously they need to give you enough information to make it kind of like sound fair instead of it just all of a sudden appearing out of nowhere, or else that'd just be a cheap reveal. And that's why I think, like, obviously the writers of Westworld are smarter than that. So that's why I think, like, with episode 4, when we do show James, and he's, I guess, trying to be like immortal, trying to put his consciousness inside, like, I guess, a humanoid type of thing, or like android, it kind of makes the sense of, like, that's probably that it might be the super weapon. I guess the chance of immortality, and kind of not only that, but just in a sense making consciousness living throughout, kind of like that really bad movie Transcendence with Johnny Depp, you know?
I actually haven't seen that.
Oh,
movie.
it's a terrible, shocking movie.
Okay.
But yeah, kind of the same
But
plot
the
where it's like
concept is the same.
someone's dying, and I implant my consciousness inside like memory, like computers, and then I control everything. So
Well, I mean,
obviously
it's kind of like Altered Carbon if you think about it. Like, except like there's like obviously in that particular show they also talk about like the ethic, like the ethics behind living forever, and how humans should only live like X amount. It's like the same kind of thing. It's kind of a general trend with like sci-fi. It all kind of like mixes in like the human condition and how how it's explored. But clearly
that's
like,
the best of sci-fi when it mirrors like real life problems, but kind of
exactly.
put it like that's why I think that's why people really like Black Mirror in a sense, especially with some Black Mirror stuff, because it hits so close to home, because a lot of it is like really relatively close tech based things, while like something like Westworld is like, I wouldn't say it's far off, but I'm saying like it's more further off than like social media random crap or anything like that,
Oh yeah. I mean, it's going to be a while till we get like live functioning robots where we can like kill and I don't know get up to all shenanigans with. But like I think the thing that I find really interesting is that there's a juxtaposition between the William kind of being the bad guy in season 1, and Dolores being like the main protagonist, trying to be like good and stuff, like trying to figure out like what she is and, but then like there's a big reveal. She's Wyatt. She's actually the bad guy. And then now the Man in Black is like, well shit, now I gotta stop all this kind of stuff from going to hell. Although that being said, he does say good on you, good on her, when somebody references Dolores. So it could be that like he kind of understands that everybody's trying to get to this end point, which is this super weapon, I guess. The one thing I remember reading online, somebody was saying that this whole journey that Ford has started, this game that William is participating in, this opinion was basically saying that it's actually one big test for the Man in Black, who is actually really a robot. And I was gonna say that's actually not that bad.
Jesus,
Like,
when people think out of the box like that, it makes me like realize like, man, my answer's so simple, but like.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I think this show can get away with like putting those hints there. It's like, oh, you might think it's this, but it isn't, right? But I kind of like the idea because it's him basically figuring out that he's a robot, despite like you think he's a human throughout the whole thing, and then he finds out that, oh wait, he's actually a robot the entire time, and Ford was basically testing, I guess, like I forget, there's like a test that you can do in order to see whether or not like robots seem more human-like or not. I forget what it's actually called, but
it's not the test from Blade Runner.
No, actually, that Blade Runner test, I think it actually is that. But it's actually a real life test that they actually do to try and see like how whether humans can distinguish the difference between a robot or a person and vice versa.
Jesus, I didn't even know we went that far.
Yeah. But wait, is there anything else in particular that you see as a particular highlight? Like I like this, like I like all the like little plot threads that are like kind of everywhere. Cause again, because it's kind of all over the place, which is done on purpose, you kind of latch on to certain things.
Yeah, I you know what I really like, especially because like when we were entering like season 2.
Oh, sorry, I think it's called the Turing test.
Yeah, the Turing test. Yeah.
It's an actual test that they do use in order to determine like how smart an AI is, or how well it imitates humans. Like I don't know if you saw recently, Google released a particular kind of in development AI called Google AO or OI, Google OI. And basically, it was able to basically call and make appointments. So I highly recommend anyone listening, if you haven't seen this, go ahead and do it. Google OI. And basically, it calls a hairdresser and books an appointment with the hairdresser. It even imitated, like, there's this one point where the hairdresser, she says, oh, like, I want a woman's haircut at like 12 o'clock or something. And the woman says, oh, hold on a moment. And the robot goes, mm-hmm, right? Like, that's something subtle like that is a reply that a human would make, but someone who's a robot, like, they wouldn't, because, in the end, despite being quite subtle, it's supposed to be an example of us acknowledging, what the person said. But a robot would be like, yes, please, I will wait. It's really cool how far we're going with tech. So I wouldn't be surprised. Of course, like, they even mentioned it in the show that, it's just an example. There's heaps that failed and there were heaps that went really well, but it's the next generation in terms of, speech patterns and getting AI to have like a proper conversation. Like, when you call, when you're on the phone and you have to call, talk to a robot, maybe it'll actually be a more easy experience. Who knows?
Well, that's the thing. I think they're starting to do a lot of that stuff where it's, you answer the phone. You can kind of tell it's kind of automated, but there's some where it's like they can kind of fool you for a while, a little bit. So that stuff's scary.
Oh, really? I actually haven't seen, but I wouldn't be surprised. Again, like, companies will want to outsource, that kind of work to a robot if they can get away with it, and especially if it's just like you're calling, inquiring about something. People like the concept of talking to a real person rather than a robot, but I think in the end, if we actually make it good, nobody would care. People will start preferring, can I talk to a robot, please? Like,
they have a binary of like information that they can have in like a second compared to a human brain. But back on Westworld in a sense where it's like, I think my favorite part of this when we were entering season 2, obviously we knew there was going to be some sort of like host uprising. And I really I think it was in episode 3 or episode 2, where we see Dolores and kind of like what was it? Dolores and Teddy kind of have different ideologies in a sense, and even like I think they're called the Banditos or whatever they're called. The Confederados. I mean,
Confederados.
And then I like how it's not just every single host is together and to work together. It seems like there's different factions, and that's kind of like very human in a sense, where it's like like Maeve like seems to be like people like Dolores is kind of barbaric in comparison to what they want, in comparison to what I want,
Yeah, I think the thing is they mentioned it. I think it does happen in episode 2 or 3. But I think there's like a level of like, I guess, wokeness, as I'll call it. Like, so some of the hosts aren't as woke as others, right? You have Maeve and you have Dolores, and you have Bernard, right? Those are probably the most closest to having the most free will. With, I think, Dolores. This is the thing, we don't know about Bernard. Maybe he's following some kind of programming. Who knows? But
like very specific programming to like kind of do certain things, because at the end, like the big spoiler thing in like episode 1 of season 2 was like he Bernard said he killed those people, but it felt like when he said that he didn't have any real recollection of it, or like he didn't really have any control. So maybe he says he has free control, but really he doesn't.
He doesn't. Like, yeah. Well, I mean, in a conversation he was having with, the girl from season 1, I forgot her name.
I think it's Elise. Is it Elise? That one?
Maybe. It was the one who I think you presumably think she got killed, because she was looking into all of the stuff that, I guess Bernard and
her name's Elise. Yeah, Elise. Yeah.
Yeah. So like Elise, like presumably you think Bernard took care of her, like took care, and that she died, right? But she just comes back and is like, whoa. Although in reality, it's not like she came back and it's been like 3 years. It's actually been like probably a few days, right? And she's just been in a cave the whole time. But yeah, it's clear that like there's some stuff that happened in between where Bernard is just like on programming mode, and he doesn't remember it, right? It's the stuff that obviously maybe Ford has like programmed into him. But yeah, like I think there is this like level of like how woke some of the robots are, and Maeve seems to be like, I don't care, like I just want my daughter and I want to get out of here. Although at the end of season 1 they do reference that, maybe she is acting in on a program to escape with some information about the host, but as of yet, we're not really too sure. With Dolores, it seems to be she wants that robot uprising. She wants that, you know, human genocide. She wants to be like, and look, to be honest, like if you consider the hosts in the show, as a sentient, living being, you would probably not be surprised with the fact that you can sympathize quite a lot with, an animal wanting to survive. And it's the same thing. It's like, they see the threat being humans, wanting to kill them. So that's what she's trying to start. She's trying to start this revolution. I don't think the robots are all free. It's just some of them are free. They just now consider humans either like the same as them or higher priority.
Or like, or I guess alien, like as in they don't feel like they're human, I guess, in comparison to them because they're not acting accordingly.
Because you can see like they still shoot, because AI will still shoot. The hosts will still shoot other hosts. And even Dolores, like speaking to the leader of the Banditos, even said, "Oh well, they're just children. They don't understand." Right. And this is an interesting point because she actually shows Teddy like look at I think it's in episode 2 where they kind of go through the facility and she shows Teddy, look, this is what they do. They kill us, they dissect us, only to send us back out again and like relive like basically like this tortured life, right? And that's an example of Teddy's getting a bit slightly more woke because he's like, what are you doing? How could you do this? Blah blah blah. And it's like, how could you, like, to a living being who feels and stuff like that, you'd be wondering like, how could you do something?
Yeah,
like
I think like Teddy's the one where it's kind of like he isn't like fully like he doesn't really understand everything just as of yet. Like he's still kind of figuring shit out.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
And I feel like there might be some conflict with Dolores and Teddy maybe in the future because
because like 3.
Yeah. But not only that, but like in the future because like I saw it, but some people didn't see it. It's like
true.
In the water with Teddy, so it's like maybe Teddy dies because of Dolores or something along those lines.
So I didn't see that either. So when Bernard washes up on the beach, one of the bodies is apparently Teddy, and I think like again, this is the reason why I think there's the 3 particular time points that we're switching between, and that. If it is Teddy, it's a point in time where Teddy has died, as Dolores and him are chasing after her father, Peter Abernathy, right?
Yeah.
And chasing after him because he's got all this information that's important, but also like Dolores wants him around because it's like the only thing that like reminds her of like not being a robot, I guess, like a living being. And this particular area, it might be the location where, that super weapon is, because we see, I think at the end of episode 2, William shows Dolores like this particular area, being well, we don't know if it's this particular area, but in episode 1 we were, we're told, hey, like this isn't on the map, like we weren't told of this ocean, basically an ocean being constructed. But we see at the end of episode 2, there's all these like kind of giant diggers digging like this particular hollowing out this area, and that very well could be this water area that might host this super weapon that now William and I guess his crew are going towards.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, what about the theory like that we had? I think I had, and I think maybe some people had in like season 1, where the Westworld park technically is underwater, and like how that would work, like that could still feed into it maybe. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
If like seeing water in this whole area is a surprise to people, then like something's got to be up, I guess, because it wasn't planned, to have that.
Well, yeah, I guess like, moving large, like, I guess Westworld in general is obviously like something you have to, very infeasible, because you just think like, wow, they're constructing like, miles and miles of like land to be a specific way, right? But like, that aside, like, if it is all underwater and suddenly there's this region that has water, that would be concerning, right? Like, why is this place filling up with water? Why did someone approve this, right? And it is shown, I think, in episode 3, where we start off in this safari world, or like this like India world or something like that. And we get shown that, oh well, the parks are kind of connected by this, I guess, lake.
Or like tunnel or something. Because that's the thing. Like, I think at the end of like episode 3 or whatever, you see a samurai like attack. So I'm assuming like a lot of these places are connected, like kind of like a Disney World type of thing, where there's some sort of thing that connects them. And even like at the start of like episode 3, at the kind of the Indian kind of like safari world type of thing, you see the apparently the hosts can't attack or go forward past the barriers, and obviously they can, because I think there was the scene with the tiger. So, like, clearly they can go outside and go anywhere they want, so...
Well, yeah, exactly. And I guess, like, Grace, I think that's the woman's name, like, she wasn't expecting the tiger to follow after her. Right? And also, apparently this world is actually called the Raj.
The Raj.
The Raj. A recreation of early 20th century colonial India under the rule of Imperial Britain, which is quite interesting. But yeah, she was kind of expecting, oh, well, or maybe that's what you think, like this red line is supposed to be that point in which the host can't go through anymore, but then the tiger proceeded to go past it, right? Maybe that's what the world are connected by, maybe not. But we know that at least they're somewhat close, because, we see at the end of season 1, Maeve and her gang kind of go from Westworld into Samurai World a little bit. Like, not Samurai World specifically, but more that they go through, like, I guess, the area where the technicians are dealing with the hosts, and you see the samurais, like, behind, like, the glass walls and stuff. But, yeah, at the end of season 3, we do see them, at the end of episode 3, we do see them kind of run into this, like, snowy area, and one of them does find a samurai head. And there is a samurai guy, or a guy with some sword, rushing towards him.
Either way, I'm hyped, because that's like, even if you look at, like, I think it was like spoiled a little bit early on, but like if you even look at like the episode names, I feel like some of these are like Japanese, like, naming, like episode 5, which should be the next one, is called Arcane no Mai, and and then episode 8 it's called Kitsuya or Kiju or whatever, like Japanese. But I'm like, clearly there's going to be some sort of weird connect with them, or like samurais in and of itself, or whoever's like the head of a shogun or something would be like a part of, I guess, the thing. And I'm assuming a lot of the samurais are mainly going to interact with like kind of Dolores and her team with like Lee and Hector, I guess, like their whole timeline, because like I feel like their one's the one where like I feel like Dolores, her mission matters, same with kind of Bernard, but I feel like, Maeve and like Hector and Lee and their whole kind of trio are kind of just inside the middle of this, in a sense, where like there's kind of like, find the daughter, or like, find humanity, I guess, but that whole thing. So I feel like they're gonna interact with probably them maybe in the future. Maybe it has a whole thing where the samurai take over, and then everyone has to turn their back on, like, and try to kill all the samurais, but it'd be cowboys versus samurai.
Well, yeah, I mean, it could be, what is it, cowboys, ninjas, aliens, and, who knows what could be next, right? I guess that's the kind of really cool thing about Westworld. You can have, like, a plethora of different, I guess, thematic characters all come together, because in the end they're all robots, right? So it doesn't really matter, like, it doesn't matter where you come from, right? It doesn't matter, your race, or, whether you're a man or a woman, doesn't matter. We're all robots, and we have to kill all the humans. Like, that's all, all that really matters, right?
Scary stuff.
Yeah. I mean, and maybe we might be exploring that a little bit later.
Well, to me, like, I just can't wait for that whole clash, I guess, because like, it's something that you don't really see. Like, the only time you really see it is in that god awful movie, Cowboys vs Aliens, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Well, it was called that, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah,
literally called that.
Oh,
yeah. Well, but that's what I was saying. I don't know if they'll have this quintessential thing happen at the end of this season. I think this show could definitely go to a third season if they like depending on what they're trying to do. If the show does well, because it's got to be quite expensive.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This seems to be like one of those like very high budget things where it's like if it's not getting the ratings and no one's loving it, then it's not worth the time to put into it. You know, even having like Anthony Hopkins in like the first season, it was like probably a thing in and of itself. You know.
In and of itself, yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like I'd like more Westworld. So I can imagine them wanting to do more. But at the same time, like I do appreciate a story that has like a finale, a close, like a good close. I wouldn't mind like Westworld being like this 2-season adventure, right? But like I think it will be dependent on is this weapon. Like it could be like again we mentioned before. It could be people transferring consciousnesses into others, but it could be like the collection of information of people from the parks to then recreate into a host to then replace their real world counterpart
and essentially just take over the world. And because that's kind of one of those things. I think it was like episode 2. I think the people from the outside world, like Lee and a few other scientists, have been like, yeah, you've never seen the outside world, like you will lose, like technically, and like technically, like we don't know so much about what's happening on the outside of Westworld, like as in like technology and improvements, but you would assume that like anyone from like the AI would lose because solely based on they just don't understand like technology, like we can nuke them. So like if this information's a way to like literally replace head leaders and head billionaires of world companies, technically that would mean they would control the world, but like not as in just like, oh yeah, let's have an all-out war. It'd be like we're controlling it from the, I guess, financials and things like that, and that is a lot more of a scarier type of thing.
Well, that's what I was saying. Like in the context of like Devos having an interest, it would be humans using hosts to control humanity, whereas I guess robots controlling humanity would be a little bit more scary in the sense that, well, we wouldn't know. And it could be that, they're told, like, as you mentioned, like, if you go out there, you'll lose. It could be, like, because we don't know how advanced humans are in the future. Like, sure, like, maybe the human condition hasn't changed, but maybe, like, we're all in spacesuits and we all carry guns and metal detectors.
I'm assuming there's some sort of augmentation, probably, because I think the that blonde-haired girl from, like episode 2 and, like, the last season... Yeah, I think like her arm got cut off or like broken or whatever, and then like she's got like a modified arm in the next few episodes. So I'm assuming there's like if they can do that for like obviously the androids and the hosts, then surely they can probably do it for humans and things like that and kind of go that far.
Yeah, maybe it could be like Deus Ex, Human Revolution.
Oh man, if they made a TV show about like that type of thing, I would just be like, too expensive.
Well, yeah, too expensive. Well, I don't know. It all depends on interest in the shows itself, right?
Well, that's the thing. Even with the no, sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just saying, like with something like Westworld, like it's It's not too sci-fi. Like there's like a major sci-fi element which is the hosts, but it's used as a mechanism to explore the story and explore the characters and the mystery. Right? It isn't like hardcore sci-fi, like let's say Blade Runner or what else? There's Altered Carbon, right? Like there's robots or people using tech to like survive and live. Like maybe once they go out, like that's maybe when they'll see like, oh shit, like we'll be fucked up, like if we go out there unattended.
Yeah, pretty much. But like I think the one thing that we haven't really touched on so much is like I guess the Man in Black and his whole deal, because like obviously like he wants to kind of stop this ultimate weapon. That which we don't know what it is currently as of yet. It kind of reminds me of like call back to season 1 with the whole maze thing, and I feel like there's still maybe something about that because I think episode 1 of this season they said something about a doorway or something along those lines. So like maybe it'll leads to something like that, or like wasn't it like last episode with Man in Black episode 4? He was talking to that girl, and like the previous season he was talking to that girl, but she seems to be somewhat self-aware. Like, about William and in the Man in Black, obviously,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's pretty clear that Ford's probably rigged, like, a bunch of people or a bunch of, like, AI hosts to respond to the Man in Black specifically. So it is kind of the case that he is the main character. Like, they say to him, girl says to him, "Oh, you think like doing one good deed like forgives you for all your sins?" So it could be like that Ford is testing William into whether he'll be a good man or a good person, right? And these are the trials and tribulations of him becoming a good person and ending like this spy program and ending like replacing humans or whatever it may be, right?
Yeah, because I think because that's the thing. I feel like there's still like you don't know, I guess, so much about like William's kind of relation to like Ford's relationship, because like obviously like William seems to be like semi head of the company type of person. He's like top of the top, but like Ford is like that kind of like weird creative type in a sense where he kind of does his work, and I guess William wants this certain thing, and I'm assuming probably in the next like few episodes or whatever they're gonna do is probably have maybe I don't know. The problem is Ford's dead, like his character, but I'd like to see some sort of flashback of like them discussing, I guess, like ethics and morality and type of thing, because I'm assuming there's been like a lot of back and forth with those two characters over the years, and obviously William wanted something that's a little bit more real, and he finally got it because of Ford's wish. Like at the end of the last season, he was happy that they could like it was actually real stakes. So I feel like there's something like that going on where he did like this is one big game, and like he kind of made it for him in a sense. So like that stuff's very interesting.
Well, I mean, the thing is, they kind of talked about it before, like in the previous season, like how difficult Ford was to deal with because he had a controlling stake, and they were basically waiting for him to quote unquote die. So, they were trying to give him fire him basically, so they could have like this major hold, like creatively and also like I guess financially. And I guess he probably at the time, maybe when he was younger, and we're kind of exploring that, like he was like that. Maybe he was like that kind of person who was like, yep, let's try and capitalize on these people. Let's try and like, make money, get rich, blah, blah, blah. Like, again, we see that kind of being thrown in his face during episode 4 when, James Devos is basically saying, oh, well, what does it feel good? Like taking over my company and, what is it, fucking my daughter and stuff like that. Like, and that's why I kind of think like in the sense that maybe, William kind of did that to James on purpose to kind of take over his company and then subtly be like, yeah, we're working on your immortality, but it might take like a long time, like it's just him trying to subtly like, use his pawns to like, become king, I guess. But now that, with all this stuff happening, and you can see like, with, saving, that whole town from being raided by the banditos, that he is showing some aspect of like being good or doing what is good to some capacity. But, that's why I'm saying like it's quite interesting to see the juxtaposition between, he was the bad guy last season, but now he's like the good guy.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
It's all once again, all shades of grey.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Like maybe like he might be the reason, why, what is it? Who did we say? Teddy. Teddy might be the one who dies, right? Because he might eventually convince Teddy, like, oh well, what following Dolores isn't the correct thing to do. Like she's going to be doing like a thing. You should follow me. Because again, they're all going to the same destination. They're all trying to go to what they call like glory or promised land or whatever they call it, right? But they're all trying to get there, which is where the super weapon. So it could be that because Teddy once traveled with the Man in Black, he might be convinced otherwise, and maybe that's when we see Dolores. I don't know, just straight mechs it,
Yeah, pretty much. I feel like because I don't think I really explained it that as much, but like in the first episode, you had Bernard and like Charlotte go in that little facility, and then they have to find the key host, which is the father of Dolores, Peter Abernathy.
Yeah, Peter Abernathy.
I'm just wondering, what do you think your theory is that like Bernard like downloaded? Like, what is that key? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Because like, is it just the code to transfer consciousness? Is that kind of like what it is? Because like we're saying that they're going to the super weapon, which is a place. but like, is it the host's? Like what does he have or something like that? That's what I'm kind of
Yeah,
about.
it could be that again, like it could be him just like working his programming that Ford's put into him. And the code, like again, they mentioned it's like they mention it later, where I think in episode 4, where Bernard looks at some information, and the IT chick, again, I forgot her name, but she's like, have you seen anything like this? Is like, yes, I've seen it before. It's in Peter Abernathy's head, right? So clearly, again, this kind of solidifies where people are in the certain timeline. Because again, in episode like 2 or something like that, we do later see, Hale later asking, him, oh, well, have you seen Abernathy? And he's like, I don't know, never seen him before in my life, Like he's trying to put on his robo poker face still. Although I do like how he has like a what is it, the he has to give himself like the brain
fluid,
juice, so he doesn't. Yeah, I don't remember him getting shot in the head. Do you? Did that actually happen in season 1?
I think there was some sort of weird thing where it was like I saw a gun in a frame and then you saw his kind of face, but I don't really recall because like. Well, wasn't it the most recent season? He said that he shot him. It looked like it was self-inflicted. I think he said.
Actually, I was gonna say because I don't think he was at the final. Maybe he wasn't.
Oh God, it's another timeline, guys. Shit.
It's a 4th timeline, guys. You're hearing it. No, because like I do remember Ford shooting him, when he was trying to like. They have a conversation with a bunch of other robots, like in season 1, in like the cadaver room or whatever, and like he thinks that, oh well, I got Ford hostage and he has to do whatever I want, but then Ford like kind of makes him realize like, no, I programmed you to do this.
It's like I literally earn you.
Yeah. So like it could be. Yeah. I don't remember him getting shot like at the actual shoot house. But it could be something that obviously might have happened before. But again, we'll see. It might just be misremembering just like aspects of the show. And again, especially for you haven't seen it in a while, so like you get the biggest pass out of not remembering certain things.
Yeah, once again, I remember there were a lot of conversations, and I'm pretty sure like the hardcore fans are probably like looking back at all the all the conversations, because that's the thing. Like, from what I remember, like the first episode of like the first season was like. It literally did have like Peter Abernathy, like he was the main focus for like the first episode or 2, like his character, and like obviously he's like, I think he said he was the oldest host, and that's why he was decommissioned. Yeah. So like that's the thing. There's probably like a lot of random stuff in there that's probably meaningful.
For memory, he was decommissioned because he saw the picture. He saw the picture of I think William's wife, and that basically broke him, and so they replaced him with a new father for Dolores, because he was basically getting sick from seeing the picture. We're not really too sure why. Again, that picture, and a moment where both Teddy was like hung up on a cactus, but then also traveling with the man in black. Those 2 things were the 2 things that kind of triggered me into thinking like there was something wrong with the timeline, right? Because again, we saw the picture like on the farm, but then we see it in the future, like a future episode, where William is like being told off by his I guess brother-in-law. Is like, hey, you're forgetting about your wife. You're falling in love with a robot. Like, remember your wife. And he kind of puts that picture down his top, but it's like, wait, isn't that picture somewhere else? So yeah, I remember that was like my 2 particular triggers that made me think like, oh, something is really sus with. I didn't think it was different timelines, but I thought there was definitely something weird with how things were going about, or maybe there was some inconsistencies. It'll be interesting to see what they are in this season. I think like people will be very hyper aware now that we know what the kind of the trick is, but the trick will probably be how many timelines, how many different time points are we going back and forth on.
Yeah, but that's the thing. There's like even a theory. I've just been pulling it up now. There seems to be like a symbol that keeps on reoccurring, and obviously like if you're into the whole like hide and seek, looking at every single inch game, you can see it. It's like kind of like a cross with kind of like 4 dots on each kind of side, and it's pretty much appear like even in season 1. And reading this like theory thing about it, it's a Greek sign that's often found in vases, and it signifies water's edge. So once again, I feel like the whole water thing, there's something got to do with that. I feel like there's a theory behind it, and I guess because that's the thing. It's like, where is this exactly going with the new one with Bernard and him being with all the soldiers and being like, hey, I killed all these people. Like, they don't seem to be shocked. Like when he said, I killed all these people, and then the next scene you see them, it's like, yeah, he's not like questioned really so much about that, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it's just supposed to be like they kind of toss it up to him losing it a little bit, right? Like, it's just like, okay, he literally survived a drowning. But it could very much be the case that, he was at this event. Maybe, he's gone there with, I'm going to call her IT girl because I don't remember her name. With the IT girl or whoever he decides to, Bernard and Dolores or Bernard and Teddy or whoever it'll be next episode, right? Whoever he decides to.
He just goes around to every single group being like, hey, what's up, guys?
Yeah, he's kind of like that floater, that guy who kind of like goes between different like social groups or whatever. But like, yeah, like he might again end up eventually going towards that weapon. And he may have killed those people. He may have been like, Ford kind of realizes, oh, well, it might be the big trick that like, Ford is like, doesn't want any of the robots to live. He wants them all to be dead. And so he tries to kill them all, right?
Yeah.
He's the one who drowns all the robots. Like, it's like that whole thing, like, can robots drown? Can zombies drown? Those are the questions that we need to ask.
It's the questions that, like, it's like, it breaks everything, like...
Yeah, a little bit, just a little bit. I would imagine in the circumstances, it would probably be like the robots are like pre-programmed to like die if there's like too much water, but in reality, it doesn't matter. They probably have like facility, like if they upped their like what is it,
survival rate or something,
survival rate or whatever, that bar, it's just like, okay, cool, I'm all right, now we live underwater now. Like, they could totally do that. So I think like maybe like what happens is it could be like the Man in Black triggers this to kill all the hosts that we're chasing after him, including Dolores and Teddy and stuff. But it could be other things. Again, I haven't looked into too many like theories and stuff. I'm sure somebody has probably called this whole season, right? It could be the case. I think. I mean, I kind of thought like the season would be focusing a little bit more about the collection of like data and information and trying to live forever and immortality and stuff. Because again, like that's what we kind of see with. Well, that's what I was expecting. Like how Ford was going to come back he was going to come back as a host. And it's an example of him being a part of like, I guess, the next evolution of man. Because that's what you can kind of like interpret hosts being, really. It's like the next generation of, or the next, I guess, next line of evolution for humans.
Like they don't feel any pain type of thing. Like I completely forgot there was a piece of media that was kind of like that, like where it was like a movie where it was like, oh yeah, I created the perfect. Oh yeah, I know what it was. It's Alien Covenant. Yeah, in a sense like that. Like spoilers for Alien Covenant for like, I don't know, a minute or so. But essentially, David's whole thing was like, I am imperfect because I cannot create life, but I created life in a fake generic way that's better than anything else that's alive, and that's the xenomorph aliens. And like, that whole type of thing where it's kind of like the creator has created something that's better than them, and in a sense kind of like wanted to, I guess, make like better than what's kind of available, because like, obviously the xenomorph design is just like a perfect killing machine in a sense. So it's kind of like that.
Well, I guess xenomorphs like inherently came off as something that is, I guess, by design, right? Because at least in the in terms of like actual like biology and evolution, like it would have to be in like direct contact with humans to have evolved this kind of parasitic relationship And even then, it wouldn't be able. It would be very specific to humans. Like, we see the xenomorphs kind of interact with like dogs and I don't know, whatever kind of weird hybrids and stuff. And it creates like this weird like sickly like I don't know alien dog hybrid or something like that. In terms of actual evolution, it would have to be like very specific in terms of like the relationship between these creatures to result in something like this. Like like it's kind of like plants, right? Like the whole reason why plants can photosynthesize, so like get create energy from the sun, is because they interacted with another organism, chloroplast, and they basically were like, hey, you're gonna chill inside us now, and now you're a part of us, and now we've formed like a new life. Like that's like that can synthesize like the sun and stuff like that. And so with something like we're doing there's interest into trying to incorporate that very thing in humans, like trying to put like maybe
Like
not
nanobots.
chloroplast. Well, maybe not necessarily chloroplast, but like I wouldn't be surprised. Like I think people wouldn't mind sacrificing being a little bit green if it meant you wouldn't starve to death, right? But that's going to result in like overpopulation, and I mean, let's face it, becoming a robot would probably also lead to overpopulation. But that's neither here or there.
Don't worry. All you have to do is get the Infinity Gauntlet and be done with it.
Oh yeah, just snap your fingers, mate. But yeah, no, I'm pretty interested to see, where else. Actually, I was going to say, is there any other kind of major things? I think we've kind of nailed everything out.
Well, that's the thing. We've covered a lot of it, but like that's the thing. A lot of this information, a lot of like plot points that we're seeing at the current moment, have not been into full fruition, and like don't have the full story. I think like in the next upcoming episodes, then like you'll be like, oh, that point, and then it's like a lot more to elaborate and discuss in a sense.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like we kind of had the bare bones still, because like we're 4 episodes in, which is like nearly halfway through the season, but we still don't know like that much information at all still, because it's still like scattered quite a bit, of like information of where they're going and what they're doing. So it's a lot kind of to kind of do, I guess. But if you have nothing else to talk about, we can wrap up the show.
Yeah. I think we've given the audience a lot of things to digest and choose. So if you guys have any theories or if you have any ideas, let us know. Because I'm actually really interested to see where they go in this show. I think I seem to say that about every show, but that probably makes sense because I wouldn't be watching it otherwise. With Westworld, like there's so many areas that they can. I want to see, what the characters are going to be doing. Again, Bernard's probably become the most interesting character because he is kind of like a bit defective, and you kind of do feel sorry for him, and at the same time, it's like, wait, but he's the host though,
Yeah, like that's the thing. He's like kind of self-aware in a sense, but like because he knows he's like I'm clearly not human, but like man, I'm fighting for survival here. I'm freaking spazzing out all over the place. I'm gonna like do what I need to do to survive. So yeah, he's probably like the funnest person to follow around. Like and once again, interested always in the Man in Black kind of storyline. He's I just like that character where he just he's just kind of old and he's sick of everyone's shit, but like he needs to do some like he has a job to do kind of thing. So yeah, I really like that character and where it's going. But yeah, that is us for this week. Once again, you can always listen to us on Stitcher, Libsyn, iTunes, and on YouTube every where we, I guess, segment it. But this one's going to be one big Westworld one where we put it on the YouTube channel called Marketing Movies. So until next time, catch up.
See ya.